Welcome back to the Quiet on Set podcast powered by Cineman. I'm Ewan, and as always, I'm joined by Lachlan.
This week, TikTok X IMDb. What does that mean? I don't know, because I didn't write the intro today. Exciting
Yes.
Paul Mescal casting, and of course, the part that I did write, Jeremy Renner gets plowed.
And I already watched it.
Can I keep that in? Can we not?
Yes.
Is that bad? He's alive.
No, that's
he's
not
okay.
bad.
He's
survived.
living.
He's
If he
okay.
died, I wouldn't be saying it, but he's okay. Okay.
No, he is okay. And I already got started with some 2022 releases like Megan, A Man Called Otto, and The Quiet Girl. And I even got some more stuff later in the show.
The next part of my script says decision to leave. That's all I have to say, which is our main topic of conversation.
It's up to you.
Thank you for coming to the Quiet on Set podcast. Tune in to us next week. That's all we've got to say. Thank you, Ewan, for joining me. We're powered by Cineman. See you later.
See you later. I really hope you don't leave, though, and stay after we play the intro. We are professionals.
This is a professional podcast.
Yes. Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Hello there. Which actually,
Did you
this
get
is
me
gonna
a
be
hat
a
as
bit,
well?
Yes.
So I've got Dooncam. It's just a camera with my Dune steelbook.
All right, Lachlan, welcome back. It's been quite an intense intro we just had behind us.
It's been
an
an
intro
intense
to the
afternoon.
new year as well.
We didn't even know if we're going to record tonight because I had no internet for the past 12 hours. I was playing video games last night with a friend, and all of a sudden, in a ranked game, I get kicked out and I can't join.
Yep.
And turns out I've lost internet in my house from my provider, and I haven't been able to do anything.
Yep.
So, Ewan, I read a book.
You read a book. Wait, what book?
No, I didn't fucking read a book. Are you kidding me? No, God, no. I watched a movie instead. You think I'm an idiot? Come on. Why would I
You
read
still
a
can't
book?
read.
I still have power. Come on. I can play games offline. I can do anything. I mainly just did stuff around the house. Went and did some daily activities and chores because I had no reason to be home. Because Sunday is one of my days off where I get to relax. But no, we didn't
Getting
think we were going to
plowed.
be recording tonight. We're getting plowed. We didn't think we were going to be recording tonight. We are 2 hours behind of where we usually record at.
That's why you catch me
but-
standing. Because usually after
Yeah.
our recording, I do 1 hour of standing at my sit-stand desk. And now I'm standing.
Are you
I feel like I got a
flexing that you
fury
have
as well.
Stand desk now? Yeah. Is
No,
that what
but
you're
I'm
doing?
flexing all my muscles. Because, look, I can do this. I can
Course.
do, yes.
I'm sitting down because I'm not an idiot because we record for an hour and a half and my legs will get
Yeah,
tired,
I'm already
so-
feeling it, and we've been here for an extended period of time as well, and I can feel it.
I mean, yeah. Well,
It might not be the
recording for
best for my
15
energy.
minutes, but we've been talking for a good 45. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's your fault for standing, my friend. I do a podcast sitting down, but my chair's getting quite squeaky. I've noticed
Right.
recently, so I kind of want to get one of those Herman Miller chairs. You know, those really comfortable, good for your sitting down position,
They're-
posture chairs.
yeah.
Super
Yeah,
expensive.
they're I think they're pretty expensive, but they're the ones that you can have for a lifetime. They don't really break. And mine that I got is you can't see it in the background, I think. No, it's
It's
not
because
there.
you're standing.
Because I'm so tall. Anyways, I think that's more than enough for the intro.
Yes,
By the
please.
time now with the theme of decision to leave, I really hope you're still here. So let's get into the quick news of this week. And we do have a couple of things that need some clearing up to do, but the easiest to get behind is the exciting new casting announcement of Paul Mescal in Gladiator, the sequel that is going to be directed by Ridley Scott. He's going to play the son of Lucilla. That's a connection. Lucius is the name of the character. He's a nephew of Commodus, which was the character that Joaquin Phoenix played in the original. So, Lachlan, some exciting news, right?
Yeah, I read that as Ridley Scott is playing the son. I didn't read that as Paul Mescal is actually playing the son. The notes in our
You're
it's
criticizing my
good.
show notes today.
I'm not. Look, I'm excited. I'd love a bit more
Yeah.
Gladiator. I'd love Ridley Scott to get back to his prime. I was going to swear then, but I held myself back because I'm not mad at Ridley Scott for his... Thank you for applauding me. I know that I definitely get us demonetized every single
It's
time.
hard. You are Australian, so I can't fault you for swearing.
Ridley Scott hasn't been pumping out good stuff recently, right? We can all agree.
Yeah.
Do we...
Well,
I still
been
regard
all
him as
okay.
one of the greatest living filmmakers to date. He doesn't have the same track record as, maybe James Cameron. But James Cameron's done 5 films where Ridley Scott's done 500 a month. So you can't fault a man who pumps out a movie every 2 weeks. that he makes a bad one once in a while. Hopefully, he can. He's been working on this one for the past. When did Gladiator come out? 2000. So
Well, I
he's
don't
been
think he's
working on
been
it, like
working
James
on it
Cameron's
that long.
Avatar 2. So surely Ridley Scott's been working on this for many, many years, and it's going to be good.
I mean, he's been working with Joaquin Phoenix on his latest film, Napoleon, and I think that's kind of where he got
exciting.
to. Well, this is a great actor. Let's do this thing again. Because I think the original Gladiator. I mean, it got the Best Picture award. It got a bunch of awards. It did pretty well. I think it made like 450 million at the box office, which is huge if you've been keeping track of what Ridley Scott's films have made since, or even if we go back all the way to Blade Runner, which was a financial flop. So it's great to see him do a great movie and give that a sequel with some. I mean, Paul Mescal might be my favorite actor at the moment working today, paired with Joaquin Phoenix, which obviously probably won't appear in the sequel, but still. But yeah.
I wonder why.
Speaking of sequels, we do have an update in the Avatar box office corner because the movie broke into the all-time worldwide, whatever conglomerate, movie-making money, heaps of money, top 10, passing Jurassic World, and it's got a couple more movies ahead of it. And now it's almost a 400 million gap to Spider-Man No Way Home. Interesting to see. The movie has been doing quite well, even better than we expected it to be. Blockbuster cinema is not dead after all. And then Lachlan, you didn't know what IMDb X TikTok meant, right?
Haven't heard of this.
You do use IMDb, but you don't use TikTok.
I use Letterboxd more than I use IMDb, if I'm totally honest with you, but there are certain things IMDb tells me that Letterboxd does not. I just want everyone to be aware. I use Letterboxd more than anything.
You have your true alliance there. That's great. I mean, IMDb is, I think, owned by Amazon. So this is like a bigger actual collaboration than it maybe initially seems to be. But TikTok is about to license the IMDb data for feature targeting film and TV content. So creators will be able to link to their favorite shows and movies on their profiles, which will direct interested followers toward the respective works' IMDb pages. So yeah, just a bit of an easier flow to get people from TikTok to IMDb. I think that's probably the goal here overall. And as someone who does a bit of TV and film content on TikTok, this is definitely going to be quite useful, hopefully.
I think it's just because there's a good whole age bracket that definitely doesn't access IMDb on a daily basis unless they're in the very small minority of film lovers from that young age. I feel like IMDb has its place on the internet for most people as just like a quick search tool. But most of the time, if you're Googling, a movie, you're going to get that little Google profile that tells you pretty much all the information. It's only when you want to start getting into some nitty gritty details, like, how much it's made, the box office numbers, the budget numbers, whether it was shot on film, whether it wasn't shot on film, what camera it was shot on, everything about it is, it's the movie.
For release dates, it's great as well.
Release dates,
I think that it does way better than pretty much any other site, unfortunately. But it's still not great. But it's hard to get like the international release dates all in order there. Lachlan, I feel like there's an obvious comparison that you can make, or like an example for this. Wednesday, one of the biggest shows that like was really, really, really big. What do you think? How many people rated that show over on IMDb?
Oh, how many? Oh, this is actually really testing what I think. Rating it on IMDb.
Just giving it a rating, yeah.
I reckon it'd be like in the tens of thousands. Am I close?
I guess I'd have to make a comparison. Let's take one of the biggest Christopher Nolan films that has a lot of a following, Interstellar. That has 1.8 million ratings. How many do you think Wednesday has in comparison? Because that's a shit ton, right? And Wednesday was a pretty big show.
I reckon Wednesday has way less.
But like,
I reckon
in what range?
Probably got like, I don't know, 1,000, 1,500,
207,000. It's not like nothing, but from the amount of people who watched it, I feel like there were more people heading over. If we take a look at something like Squid Game, it's about double. It's 450 million people, 50,000 people who rated it.
Here's the thing about rating stuff on Netflix, and it's the same. It's my same argument as before. It's a very small group of people who actually leave a rating for stuff they watch. Like
Well,
for the people who want to log that
yeah.
shit, they're using Letterboxd to do that. But then there's the diehard people who log everything and they do that on Letterboxd. But I feel like for the majority of people who watch those TV shows and movies, they just watch it, they move on, they don't bother about rating it, and then if they bring it up in conversation, they're like, yeah, I liked it, but they're not going to bother rating something on IMDb because they have to make an account,
Yeah.
and they have to do this.
That is true. I just felt like by the amount of support that it got, in addition to the hype, that like it would flood IMDb with high ratings, and I think it's sitting at like an 8 point something as well, which it could definitely be higher for a show that's so popular, and feels like there's not a lot of criticism coming its way. Which, by the way, another little side bit to the quick news today, which aren't so quick after all. Wednesday is getting a second season. It just got a short little announcement trailer. Where they break the fourth wall as well. It's a bit odd of how they went about it, but it is getting a second run. Okay, no, I can't do this tie over. Luckily,
Jeremy Renner gets plowed.
He's getting a second run after a scare. I looked up what snow plows look like. If you hadn't heard, over the holidays, Jeremy Renner ended up in the hospital. Terrifying thing. He got crushed by a snowplow. He looked absolutely wrecked. We're so glad to see him recover from that, but that's just been a crazy story to kick off the new year. But yeah, Lachlan, do you have anything else to add here?
I have nothing to add about Jeremy Renner getting plowed. I have made my joke. I am happy with it. It's the first thing I thought of when I read the news article, and I just couldn't wait for you to bring it up on the internet for me to then share with the internet. Moving on.
It's okay because it's going to be fine. Moving on. We don't do a trailer watch anymore on this show, but we do them as separate videos for trailers that we are really looking forward to. And the first trailer for Ari Aster's Beau is Afraid is about to drop soon. So be on the lookout for that on the channel. We'll have a trailer watch up for that soon. But Lachlan, without further ado, let's get to what we've been watching. So Lachlan, what have you been watching?
Holy shit, I've missed out on so much TV in 2022, so I have spent almost 2 days. Not really. I spent like a couple hours ago writing a list of stuff I want to watch. And starting off that list, I watched the first 5 seconds of Copenhagen Cowboy, which I was very excited to start watching. And I say 5 seconds because I had to stop watching it because my internet was so trash and I was watching it on my phone and I felt like this wasn't the best way to watch it. You know, the way that Nicholas Ren obviously wants me to watch it. I'm a big fan of his work in the past, so I am quite excited to watch Copenhagen Cowboy, but I'm counting that. Anyway, what else have I been watching? Supernatural.
More than 5
I've been
seconds?
trying to catch up on that. My God. Supernatural is just so many episodes. There's like 300 episodes, and I'm slowly but surely making my way through it. However, I want to point out an episode called Tall Tales where Sam and Dean are kind of arguing with each other because there's this trickster that's like causing chaos. And it's one of the first episodes where I've gone, this show really knows what it wants to be. And it started making me really excited to continue watching it. And I went back on IMDb and I looked at the rating, and it's a 9.1, where the rest of the episodes are kind of like a 8.6, 8.7. So it's a bit of a higher episode. So, you know, Supernatural, I know it's very, very popular and it's got a very big fan base, and I'm excited to just make my way through it because I'm a big fan of that style of show, especially when I went back and watched X-Files many, many years ago. I'm 5 episodes deep into Jack Ryan. I'm watching my way through season 3. It's definitely better than season 2. But I still don't think it's as good as season 1. I think season 1 was definitely the cherry on top for this show. Even as much as I love John Krasinski, he just can't seem to carry the funness of the Tom Clancy world. And I just really want some good Tom Clancy content because I really do enjoy that sort of deep undercover. Funnily enough, I actually went back and started playing a couple hours of Ghost Recon games. This week as well, because I was watching Jack Ryan and I was like, I should jump back in and see what it's like, because there was a bunch of updates for Breakpoint, and I just realized there's not really, you know, you had Without Remorse a couple years ago, and that was dog trash, and then we had that Tom. It was a Tom. I don't know if it was a Tom Clancy IP, but there was the one with Chris Pratt that came out a couple months back, and
Oh, the one on Prime? Oh, no,
yeah, the one
something
on
different, right?
Prime. But it's Tom Clancy-esque in a way, and even still, it just was very mediocre. I just would love, and funnily enough, because I was talking to one of my mates about our top 10s for 2022, and he noted that there's very much been a lack of like slow thriller burners and action
Yeah.
thrillers in a way of last year. And I think that the Tom Clancy IP is a great example of, you could definitely have like a guy or even a chick or like a group of, like as a great example, like the Ghost Recon group, like cut off, stuck in this, certain country or in America being hunted down by a certain government agency, and you could make some really cool shit out of it. John Wick, but less of the weirdness of John Wick. You know what I mean? Like, you know how John Wick's like cool, but then it's like this really weird underworld that's on top of the, I guess, the real world.
More
Less
rooted
of
in
that,
the real world,
more
I assume,
realistic,
right?
more deep rooted.
Yeah.
But that's all I've been watching. I've been really wanting to catch up on television, and there's a lot of cool stuff that has dropped now that it's 2023 on streaming services, both movies and TV shows. I was literally getting notification after notification on Letterboxd, and I'm like, oh my god, I gotta quickly remember that it's on this. I literally have a note on my notes app where each thing is streaming, so I don't have to keep going back and forth with Letterboxd. So, suggestion Letterboxd, allow me to categorize each of them into each streaming services, so Netflix and then Prime and then like all of them, so I can see it instead of having to individually switch between, which one's this on, which one's this on. It'd be great. Anyway,
I think in the list view you can select the service you got, and then it shows you everything that's on Netflix. If you have like a bigger list and you see all the stuff that is
I just
streaming.
want everything
But
that's
it's
on
not the
streaming,
same.
and then I can just see everything that's on streaming, and then what's streaming where, and then not have to go.
Oh,
Okay,
like
I
an
want it on
additional
Netflix
page,
only,
yeah,
and I don't want it
by
on this
streaming.
one only. I just want streaming and then categorized into what selective streaming services I've got. But a boy can wish, right? This is
A boy
what
can
I've been
wish,
watching has just been me wishing.
Definitely. It's the Terminalist, by the way, which is about like a Navy SEAL, I think. Chris Pratt show. It's just kind of similar, but has no affiliation with Tom Clancy. I've also been watching a whole bunch of stuff by, funnily enough, tagging onto this TV's side of things. Mythic Quest Season 3 just wrapped its run, and I feel like it was the weakest season so far, and kind of saved itself with the last, I think, 3 episodes that were quite solid, kind of pushing things along. And I don't like all of the characters still, but it's pretty entertaining show. It's a fun one, but yeah, nowhere close to maybe some of the more iconic things that some of the actors have been in, like Community or Sunny in Philadelphia. Then I watched something on HBO called This Place Rules. I don't know, Lachlan, if you are familiar with Andrew Callaghan and his Channel 5 interviews that he does all throughout the States. Well, he did a documentary on the January 6th Capitol riot, and follows a bunch of people around as things start to heat up and actually, things start to happen. And he's surprisingly really, well, I mean, if you watch his YouTube videos, that he's good at documenting stuff and, letting people just speak, I guess, but less in the Borat sense of where it's like set up that they look foolish, but he comes with like an actual understanding and tries to just get behind like where this kind of separation comes from. And so his stuff is always really interesting. Yeah, it's a great little documentary that I hope some people go check out. If you haven't had it on your radar, that's streaming on HBO. I caught up with a release that might not be out everywhere just yet. One of the Best Picture contenders, Women Talking, from Sarah Polley, the novel adaptation with a bunch of women in a barn discussing if they should stay or leave with a colony and what that all entails. It's a great closed off liminal space conversation type of movie that I think works really well. Definitely one of the highlights of 2022/2023. I can't say the same thing about the new horror film Megan, which I guess has been received quite positively. The puppet come to life, taking care of a little kid who just lost her parents. It gets really weird, but not in a good way. So I didn't really like Megan. I feel like it's that type of January release that you can skip out on. Netflix kind of did the same thing with The Pale Blue Eye, a novel adaptation that has Edgar Allan Poe in there, which, Lachlan, I know you have no clue who Edgar Allan Poe is, probably, because you don't read.
Are you kidding me? You don't. You want to test me?
Well, what's a book that he's written then?
I don't know one of his books, but I do know a number of his short stories, such as the one with the heart underneath the floorboards. Actually, do I have? Hang on.
You can't break the bit. You don't read, Lachlan.
I mean, I don't
Right.
read, but I.
You just looked at the words and somehow it came to you, the story. It
I look at
visualized.
words and I go, "Wow, where are the pictures?"
This was a murder mystery story that had kind of a stacked cast, at least in the lead. Christian Bale being in there, and then also Henry Melling as Edgar Allan Poe, who maybe some people better know as Dudley from the Harry Potter series. I don't know. It's a pretty okay mystery. I think the ending works a bit better than everything leading up to it. And I can't say the same thing about A Man Called Otto, the new Mark Foster / Tom Hanks film, which is just a Hallmark movie. It's like such a messy premise of like a depressed old guy who is just mad about everything. And it basically goes wherever you expect it to go, but then it also shoves in social media into the mix, which also becomes like a bigger part than like it's all of the cringy things you could expect a movie like this to do, and it actually does them, ramps them up to 11 as well. So can't recommend A Man Called Otto. And then lastly, a film that I had on my watch list for a while and that might be in the running for the best international Oscar for Ireland is The Quiet Girl, a movie about a quiet, neglected girl that is sent away over the summer from her family that's not taking care of her to her aunt. And it's I guess at the moment it's the best movie of 2023, which I guess is only about 5 in contention right now, but it's really solid film. You can stream it over on the BFI channel at the moment, and it's a somber little tale. I feel like in my short little review I said the next time someone asks me what I think slow and tender means in a movie, I'll just show them any scene from this film. So a beautiful little story that's streaming on BFI. But that's all I've been watching, Lachlan. Let's talk about Decision to Leave. Ha Jun, a seasoned detective, investigates the suspicious death of a man on a mountaintop. Soon he begins to suspect Sore, the deceased's wife, while being unsettled by his attraction to her. That's the latest from Park Chan-wook, a really beloved director amongst the two of us, I can say. The movie has been received very positively so far, a 3.9 on Letterboxd, 7.3 on IMDb, and an 84 on Metacritic. Comes in at a runtime of 139 minutes and is streaming on Mubi. It's, I think, also a production by Mubi. So some great stuff being produced and being streamed on that platform. Go check that out. I think they also got some great deals on the pricing as well. It's really affordable. But this is the latest from Park Chan-wook, this crime drama romance as well, that premiered earlier in 2022 in Cannes and won the Best Director prize there. Now, because this movie is out on VOD, we are gonna dive into our full-on spoiler thoughts to Decision to Leave. So you've been warned. But Lachlan, what did you make of Decision to Leave?
Before I get into my thoughts, I just want everyone to know I've only watched this film once. And for me, watching international films, watching it a second time is going to be the better screening for me. So for myself, I'm going to have a lot of negative things to say about this film at first. I still have a lot of positive things to say, and I'm still going to say that this is still a very, very good film. One of the best of 2022. I'm definitely adding it into my honorable mentions of 2022 list. Probably going to kick something out. I'm probably going to kick Fresh out, if I'm totally honest. I don't think Fresh was as good as this. That's probably what I'm going to kick out. But overall, this is one of the best made films of last year. Visually, story-wise, it's a bit weak. It's definitely not as strong as some of his previous films. But I still believe that it's all pretty much made up for being one of the most, when I say romantic, but one of the most interesting combinations of genre bending, because it is essentially a love story and a murder mystery. Not in the sense that it's a whodunit, like a a Ryan Johnson Knives Out production, which you can definitely feel some sort of whodunitness in this film with some of the style of shots and also with the style of comedy as well. I think that the comedy pretty much feels like a whodunit gotcha kind of moment without being as over the top as a Ryan Johnson joke. So one of the biggest sort of praises I can give this film is being so damn dry with its humor that it just is very funny. But for me, the story itself is probably the weakest point. And funnily enough, I think I said the same thing for Parasite when I first watched it the first time. It's just because when I'm watching a foreign film, I'm typically trying to read the subtitles, quickly look back at the frame, and get back down. And there is a lot of texting in this film, which goes by extremely quickly. So I would feel like a second rewatch is going to be super beneficial to anyone who watches this film that is not a native Korean speaker, because you are going to be quickly reading text and all of a sudden the shot has changed. But I was dazing in and out of, honestly, the story and following the dialogue, because I thought visually this film was portraying the film quite well. The cinematography coming out of South Korea is some of the best in the game right now. They are incredible. I say they, but like South Korean directors of photography, which I shouldn't just say they because there is a person behind this. Let me just load up the IMDb of Decision to Leave and let me say their name. Kim Jae-young is the cinematographer of this film. Has also worked on a couple of a number of other South Korean films. One that at least I know of, Okja. Not as the DP, but anyway, Kim Jae-young does an incredible job, both with sort of the framing of each shot, but I think lighting as well. And then hand in hand with the editing team, the transitions in this film are some of the most spectacular transitions I have seen in probably the past, I would say, 2 to 3 years. I think that it had such a natural progression of scene changes compared to any film that I've recently watched. There was not really ever a jarring moment. And this is also sort of its downfall as well, because it really goes fast. It is so quickly going between scenes, especially in the first 45 minutes. It is, you feel like you've watched an entire film within the first 45 minutes. That's how definitely crazy this film is. And one of the notes that I wrote down in a way of trying to describe how this felt, basically it felt like the film was very still, in the sense that there was never a jarring moment that pulled you in or out. You kind of always just felt like you were observing. And even at its highs and its lows, it kind of just felt like a roller coaster that was just horizontal, going extremely fast. Like, I'm talking just drag racing fast, and it would fluctuate between
whole movie's
these
just
moments.
etching you.
Yeah. Okay. I like the description.
That's
analogy.
basically what happens. Yeah.
Sure, it's edging you, Ewan. I like that. Yeah. That's a great analogy for how this film flows.
Now is another decision to leave that you'll have to make. If you
but yeah, essentially it's just it flies through scenes, and again, this is where its downfall is for me, and I feel like a second viewing is definitely going to help, and I 100% would love to do a second viewing, especially if it comes out on 4K. Ooh, baby, if this film comes out on 4K, you know I'm getting it. But essentially, very fast roller coaster that at its highs, at its lows, it's so quick with changing that it kind of feels like it's quite still, like it's quite calm. But it's just so gorgeous, and the two main characters, who, forgive me, their names are not going to be coming off the top of my head, extremely
Jang Han-jo and Song So Rae, which, by the way, is probably like horribly wrong, but I mean, Park Ha-il is the lead actor, and then Tang Wai.
So let's just say Jang and Song. So Jang and Song's relationship is just eye-watering. It's gorgeous. Like, what? These two should not be lovers. What is going on?
Yeah,
and that is my favorite thing. Right? It's
Yeah.
so complex. And I was not expecting this because obviously with the trailers, you kind of go, oh, it's a whodunit. Here we go again. And
Hmm.
you kind of get into this film and you go, hang on a second. Am I about to watch these two fall in love? But do I want them to fall in love? Why are they falling in love?
Yeah.
No, this shouldn't be happening. She should be arrested. He should be doing his job. But why do I want them to be together? Why is this such an interesting, complex situation about their relationship? But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's my
Yeah.
general gist. That's my general gist.
There's
Ewan,
like
I've
a
been-
quote in the movie. Sorry. There's
No,
like
go
a
ahead.
quote in the movie from her where she says, "The moment you said you loved me, your love is over. The moment your love ends, mine begins." Like that's already such a complex statement,
Goddamn.
and I don't know what to
Jesus.
make of it. Like I feel like the story where you say its downfall is, I think that it packs in so much thematically, like the mountains and the water and everything can kind of symbolize something. And I feel like maybe you pick up on that a bit more on a second watch. I at least did. I didn't have the chance to completely rewatch it because it is quite a long film, and it's been a while since I seen it in May. But then refamiliarizing myself, it's like terrible to skip through the movie because a lot of it is in the transitions, and I ended up watching May more than I wanted to watch just because I feel like where the editing works is obviously like the flashy stuff where we get like a sex scene and then it shows something on TV, then it shows her, but it's like the accused, like watching the TV while the other guy, the detective, is having sex with his wife, and then it goes back with the hand and shows like an X-ray, and then you're back in bed,
God,
and it's all
that
like
was
one
so
fluid
gorgeous.
motion.
Oh man.
And you're like, okay, well, thematically, I guess they're connected in some way, where it feels disconnected in another way. What's the X-ray things supposed to symbolize? I don't know.
Yeah.
Do we need to read into it for your enjoyment of the film? I don't think so, because it's just a really technically proficient film that you can just enjoy for its visuals and its editing style. And then there's like other moments where, like the one where he chases the guy on the rooftop, and then before you see him fall, it just cuts away, and you don't really get to see what happens. And you know he's not like, he didn't push him off in that moment, right? It's just like, but you get those ellipses. That's like when there's a cut in between and you don't get to see what's in between. And they don't do them all chronologically as well. Like you cut back and forth to him later and then back. And I don't know, it just worked for me emotionally in certain moments. And then I was completely disconnected from the film in others, where I didn't really was vibing for the whole romantic side, because you're like, okay, well, this shouldn't be happening. Can we
Yeah.
get back on track with this murder mystery? And then like, well, I guess ultimately you don't champion the decisions, but you get to see their romance unfold. And it's so complex and so bizarre. I don't know what Park Chan-wook's obsession is with really complex relationships, because he does them in pretty much all of his movies. That's the central focus. Like something that you can't really grasp of, like, well, it's not rational, but it's human. And
Yeah.
that, I don't know, it just captures something that I think is great. So I really enjoyed it. I even enjoyed it
the
more just
whole-
skipping through it.
The whole like that him running up the sort of roof chasing that criminal scene and then cutting, for me it felt like they wanted to never they want to keep you guessing, because I feel like most people know that with a film you kind of cut to another shot, where with this film it felt like when you feel like it's going to cut, the camera's just going to move. The camera is practically always moving, and it's a bunch of really small, I guess, one takes, and then the cuts you remember, the very juxtaposing cuts of just harsh cut, it's almost like it's jumping time. And that can be a very complex thing with editing, because you've got to get it to flow, and little moments will flow quite well, but then all of a sudden you could be cutting and it's time jumping, and all of a sudden he's sort of visualizing himself in this scene, and that's another complex thing that you're also having to process at the same time. It's like, oh, okay, he's not actually in her apartment, he's picturing himself in the apartment while this moment is going on with her. It's all one take because the transitions are so smooth. Your brain is exploding. Your brain's
and there's
all over
dialogue,
the floor.
and there's something,
and
you
there's
gotta
dialogue.
read. That's why
Oh.
that's like, I think you kind of have to know where a scene is going. It's
Exactly.
really hard on the first watch. So I came out of my first viewing experience being a bit overwhelmed as well. I liked it,
Yeah.
but I didn't love it. And I feel like it definitely works better on a rewatch.
Yeah.
Feel like that's gonna
Another
benefit it a
camera
lot.
movement is right at the end where obviously Song meets her tragic end, and
Hmm.
he's at the beach. Jane's at
Yeah.
the beach, and it's literally a shot where he kind of walks over where she is, and the camera kind of moves in close, and you feel like it's about to cut away, and then it moves down
Hmm.
to it pointing essentially up at him. It holds for a few moments while he's on
Yeah.
a phone call. It then comes back up and then moves closer to him, and then he
Yeah.
kind of like walks off, and it's like that's one whole movement, and it
Hmm.
doesn't cut, and it's like the camera is so focused at keeping itself within this I guess this moment. It doesn't want to cut away. And I don't know
Yeah.
if you know this, but I found this out recently that in South, or at least South Korean films, they have an editor on on location, and they actually
Hmm.
edit the scene whilst they're shooting, which
Re-
is a very
what?
interesting. Yeah. So what they'll have is they'll have
Okay.
an on-set editor, and they will get the footage. Obviously, they data wrangle it. So very okay. For people who don't know how a film is made, there's a lot of people on set that do a lot of different things. But typically,
Yeah.
you don't actually have an on-set editor in pretty much any Western, and I say that in quotation, Western productions. Typically, you do a shoot,
Hmm.
you take all the footage, it gets data wrangled for copying and pasting, and then the footage media gets handed back to the DP, and chuck it into the camera.
Yeah. You
That's a
got your
very
dailies.
streamlined way of doing it, right? And
Yeah.
then eventually all the footage is sent to the editor, and then their assistant organizes it, and then the editor goes to the edit. Okay, that's a
Hmm.
very simple one where they are kind of cutting out that whole middleman option. As soon as they get the footage kind of copied, it's headed over to the editor, who obviously they're pretty much going to do their masters probably first. So they get the master
Yeah.
shot of the scene, they know the feeling, and then they're doing obviously their close ups, they're doing their interesting shots. And especially with this film, the transitions are very important. So being able
Hmm.
to have one scene follow another, I don't know how, if that, they probably didn't shoot this in order, but they probably shot the transitions like pretty close together. To have that down packed, they would have had to have the editor on location. And only reason I don't know about this editor thing is that I heard that they had it in Parasite. Like Bong Joon Ho would
Right.
have an editor on site editing the film as they were shooting, and I think that's something that other films should kind of incorporate, because that's a very juxtaposed, like you've got your editor all maybe across the globe, and then you've got the
Yeah.
shoot that's happening here. So there's this very
Yeah.
interesting thing about South Korean films with the style and how good the cinematography and editing is, and I think it's just because it happens so quickly. The shot gets given to the editor almost immediately.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of it is just prep work as well, where you come
Yeah,
in. I feel like the storyboarding is also sometimes on another level, especially
super
with
important.
Bong Joon Ho as well. I think he's really hard on that. Like obviously you have the whole movie planned out. When you get onto set, you're just executing it. Most of the work has been done before, and most of it will be done afterwards. So the actual shooting is the smallest part of it, and then I guess not having the vision just in the director's head and already
Yeah,
incorporating that into the day of an editor on set. I mean, that's an amazing workflow if that works, because then you don't just have the dailies where you're like, okay,
yeah,
which take was the best, but no, you actually get to see it together in the movie how it flows, like pretty straight. Well, at least in that scene, you get to see it more played out because, like you
yeah.
said, movies are typically never shot in order, other than I guess a film like
Ever.
1917, which is just a long take, or like something like Athena,
Very,
more
very,
recent
very
film.
long take. I mean, like
Yeah,
visually telling a story, a lot of prep work has to be done, and I feel like
yeah,
because this film is so visually important. We talk about visuals on this podcast since the beginning of it, and
visuals, yeah,
visuals, they're like the biggest thing. I mean, it's an
mhm,
audio visual medium, filmmaking, music and
yeah,
dialogue and audio of all kinds is super important, but at the end of the day, it's the big screen. That's what it's known as, the big
mhm,
screen. So having a very important visual style and visual cues, uh, And I guess knowing visual language at the same time is super important with filmmaking.
Yeah.
And this film is knocking it out of the park with, you know, callbacks to particular shots. I mean, one example is obviously, you know, them handcuffed together in the car. There's that first one where his wedding ring's on his hand and hers is, I think she doesn't actually have her wedding ring on, but they're handcuffed together. And then there's the one later on in the film where they're essentially holding hands. And it's like there's all these callbacks to these certain shots. And,
Yeah.
you know, it's just, I can't stress enough how wicked this film looks from start to end. But it's not all good
Yeah.
news. 'Cause, oh my god, the story's a mess.
Oh no. Yeah. You think the story is a mess, or is it something
think
that
it's
it was
messy.
just moving too fast? I think
No,
it is.
yeah,
It
no,
is a
well,
bit messy. Yeah.
I think that it's very fast, and I think it takes a lot of
Yeah.
energy to keep up to date with it. And again, first watching, I feel like a second viewing is definitely going to help. But I
Yeah.
just the whole falling in love with this person complex. Well, I think it's beautifully stunning, and I think it's gorgeous, and I think it's like this shouldn't be happening. I don't really know how I feel about it. I just don't think the
Yeah.
story is like I don't have a reason for them to fall in love. I just never got that. Like
Yeah.
I get it that he is more fixated on you know what she thinks of him, and she's more fixated on obviously not losing him following her.
Yeah.
That's kind of like what their focus is, instead of him wanting to figure out the crime and she should be in jail. I mean, you know, she's not very
Yeah.
careful with leaving evidence. She
Yeah.
just wants the trail to stay warm, and he wants to make sure that she thinks he's cool. And it's a very interesting dynamic between the two. But I just never got to the point where I'm like, yes, that's like I think it's there. Like story wise, I think visually wise, again, they tell the story very beautifully, and that's mainly watched this film, and I didn't really read a lot of the dialogue. I kind of dazed out of it, but story wise, I just
Yeah.
don't believe it
What
at all.
do you think it was because you, after watching the trailers, you expect a bigger focus on the murder mystery? Might that be a thing where you're like, it's also expectations, or do you think just the writing overall is a bit messy?
I don't think it's the expectations of going into the film, because I was still pleasantly surprised with this film. I still had a great time. I don't think
Right.
that the shock that it wasn't as much of a murder mystery as what I was hoping it was going to be played a downfall in its story. I just
Right.
didn't enjoy the story as much as what I think what the film wanted me to.
Right.
And
Okay.
just coming from
Yeah.
just generally from a structural standpoint.
I think I agree on at least on that level that the movie is like too good technically for its story. But that
Mm-hmm.
only goes
That's a great
to
way of putting it.
emphasize how amazing all of the editing, the cinematography. I think the score is also amazing. I love
Yes.
the performances. I love the themes, but then it doesn't warrant, I guess, that level of expertise that maybe something like Parasite was able to pull off perfectly. Like, it was technically an amazing film with the editing, with the score. Like, everything came together. I love the performances. And then the story was a bit simpler to follow. It did have like some confusing elements as well. Like, it's a bit of a dumb thing, I guess, to compare like, oh, this is the only other South Korean film, you know? But
Yeah.
it's like they're similar in a lot of ways where like they're technically so proficient. They're like so precise with everything. And then it doesn't feel like the precision is there in the story, because the story that it's trying to tell about these two lovers is messy in every other way. Like, even down to the way that they have to communicate, and the
Yeah.
way that it is communicated, like between them, and then how it's communicated to us. It's like a lot of it is like, well, what's actually happening, what's their imagination, what's recordings of them. It gets so messy and hard to follow, that I feel like, I guess it went a bit overboard of how it's showcasing their relationship. When I don't know what would happen if you made it a simpler story. Would the movie be better in your mind? I don't know, because like I don't see the movie being like drastically different in any sort of way, you know? when you simplify the story. But I really like it. I don't know if we'll keep repeating ourselves. So like, well, story not as strong, visuals great, technical stuff is great. But other than that, I also couldn't really make much of the like mountains and the water, the recurring themes there. Honestly, most of that went over my head. Again, visually though, the wallpaper she got in her apartment, that's
God
like
damn.
mountains, but
Yeah.
it looks like waves. It's so beautiful. Like we haven't talked about we've talked about like the camera work. We've talked about the editing. I just touched on the score. We haven't mentioned the production design yet. And holy shit, the art direction for this film is immaculate. It's amazing. It looks so great. All of the
I feel like
blues
everyone
and
was being
sometimes even
paid
greens in there.
overtime except the writers.
Oof. Right. Right. Well, they should be done before they start filming.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe they should have got it overtime. But yeah, definitely. I mean, I love that. I also just love the overall color grade as well of it. All of the blues that were in there. We are getting really technical with this stuff today. Maybe you noticed that like when we went to film school, the two of us, we both kind of liked the cinematography aspect the most, other than like the storytelling overall. That was kind of the stuff that we enjoyed doing the most, right? So I
true.
guess that's when a movie does it this well, we tend to kind of pigeonhole ourselves into having our focus on that. But yeah, I feel like this is the perfect movie to do it.
Was the color grade green or blue to you?
From remembering it after the film, I thought it was more green. Now having
I thought it was
rewatched
more
parts
blue.
of it, I feel like it's blue.
I thought it was more blue.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the pink and what's the golden or pink dress?
Yeah.
What do
yeah,
you
the-
see
the
in Park
dress, the
Chan-wook's
internet
decision to
dress.
leave? To who would you recommend this movie to?
I don't think I could recommend this film to a lot of people. I think it's not as
Yeah.
it's not as friendly as other films. And
Yeah.
it's not because it's a foreign film and it's not in English. I just think that a lot of people might struggle with wrapping their heads around the scenes in particular where they,
Mhm.
as I said earlier, transition extremely smoothly and then all of a sudden cut to a different scene and the
Yeah.
character is projected into that scene, but they're not really there. They're just imagining it. So I feel
Mhm.
like for a lot of people, it might be a big struggle. To anyone who, you know, they watch movies for movies, those are the people I'm going to be generally recommending this film to. But to someone who
Mhm.
just a casual movie watcher, like, oh, what should I watch tonight? I'm not going to be recommending this film. I'll be saying, go
Yeah.
watch Avatar 2: Way of Water.
Right.
You'll find
Even
way
All
more
Quiet on
fun
the
out of
Western
this.
Front, you know, and another one of the front runners for like the biggest international film. I feel like that's an easier sell. Although that movie also is like it's similar in how technically proficient it is, and maybe the story where it's like it's a lesser focus. And it's an interesting year. I feel like you touched at the start of the review on the film language that's really complex in here. I feel like if you have a fair understanding, good bit of understanding of what like film language can be in films, and it's not just the streamlined a hero's journey at all
Yeah.
times, then you might find some things to grab yourself onto in this film. But you got to hold on for dear life at times
Yeah.
because it goes
I
by
think-
pretty fast.
I think this film is generally like received quite well with at least our circle of
Yeah.
reviewers that we follow and our
Yeah.
friends.
Movie is the
and
perfect place for it as well.
This is not a letterbox movie. This is not an IMDb movie. That's a good way of putting
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
This is
that's
a
another
letterbox
good, yeah.
movie, not an IMDb movie.
Get that on the poster.
Because man, you feel fucking smashed at the end of this film. Like you are
Mhm.
like it's quite a depressing ending. Like it is quite a depressing
Yeah.
ending, and you think to yourself, oh, "Okay, it's gonna have something," and then it doesn't. It pretty much just ends, and you're like,
Yeah.
"Wow, that's a pretty rough way of ending this film." So yeah,
Mhm.
no, it's depressing. It's funny. It's confusing. It's yeah.
It's Decision to Leave. It reminded me a bit of Portrait of a Lady on Fire from Celine Sciamma from a couple of years ago, in the
Okay.
way that it was like longing for each other's closeness, but then had
Sure.
just a devastating ending where you don't really get to it. But that movie was like way easier to follow, obviously, because they were in the same space, literally.
Literally.
And
Physically.
yeah. I feel like crime thrillers tend to overcomplicate stuff for the sake of the plot. and maybe that doesn't pair as well with romance. But I still like to see the attempt to be done, and especially South Korean filmmakers are pushing that forward, the bending and meshing of genres. So, Lachlan, where do you arrive at as a rating for Park Chan-wook's Decision to Leave?
Right now, I'm giving Decision to Leave a 4 out of 5. Possibly could increase after a second viewing. Possibly could decrease after a second viewing.
Yeah.
As well.
Right.
But right now, it is a 4 out of 5. I've literally just logged it on Letterboxd.
It was the same for me when I first watched it earlier in 2022. It's a 4 for me as well. Didn't move up, but I think I'm closer to like a 4.5 than a 3.5. And I'll definitely give this one a rewatch as well. I might as well also wait for the 4K release, because I feel like this movie is going to be stunning to watch on in that resolution. It really is made for the big screen, or the biggest resolution that you can have at home as well. Thematically, maybe staying on Park Chan-wook, where would you send people for your pick of the week?
My double feature pick of the week, inspired from this film, which had an interesting visual style to it, just understand cinema language, and a romance that shouldn't happen but did happen. It's Robert Eggers' The Lighthouse.
Right. I love the pick. Similar to it, hard to understand at times. Also the theme of water with the mermaid that pops up in there. But Joint Security Area is my actual favorite Park Chan-wook film. Maybe not a lot of people have seen that one, and it's about the conflicts between the South and North Korean border, and it also explores a lot of complex relationships there. So that's my recommendation of the week. That brings us to the end of this week's show. Next week, because it's still January, it's unclear what we'll end up having our main focus on. But the first episode of the Last of Us TV show is dropping over on HBO Max. So we'll definitely be talking about that. Maybe on the main show, maybe in a separate video. Be on the lookout. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss that. But yeah, Lachlan, that's pretty much it. You can follow all of our socials. Those are linked below for Quiet on Set for me, for Lachlan. And we'll see you next week. Lachlan, do you have anything else to tag onto our review here, or?
No?
We'll see you next week.